Welcome to One Day in Transformation, the podcast where we explore how individuals and organizations turn systemic challenges into opportunities for growth. Today we're joined by Alexander Nusselt, a coach, psychotherapist, and transformation expert who believes leadership isn't about avoiding tension, it's about using it. For over 2 decades, Alex has worked at the intersection of organizational change, crisis intervention, and self-leadership, helping executives and team harness ambiguity, emotional pressure, and polarisation as tools for resilience and integrity. His work spans executive coaching, experiential labs for teams, and psychotherapeutic practice, all rooted in one question: how can we use tension not to seek comfort, but to create clarity?
Alex, your approach is provocative in the best sense. You argue that the real work of leadership begins when knowledge ends and tension takes over. You've spent 20 years in organizations like Siemens, founded by Spannungsraum, to turn tension into experiments, and now train leaders to develop what you call Ambiguitätskompetenz. I know it's a quite complex word, even in German, but the ability to thrive in ambiguity. So what was the moment, Alex, where you realized that tension isn't a problem to solve, but a resource to exploit?
Yeah, so I really thought about if there's one moment, but honestly, there's not one single moment in my life. So if anything, there's a long learning curve, I would say, and a lot of unlearning. So early in my career, especially in IT, and this is where we also met, Rainer and I, and software development and project management, I was trained to reduce complexity. So defining the right solution, pushing it through, optimizing for speed and costs and for quality and all that stuff. And I've seen many projects not really failing, but becoming somehow unnecessarily painful, I would say. So slow because of power games and one-sided decisions and a lot of unspoken conflicts. When I remember and when I think back, so I see some patterns also in private relationships, so when one perspective dominates, when it's not about just arguments and losing arguments, it's about losing people, it's about losing relationships. So, and when I put all these things together, so I found this always quite interesting. And I wanted to understand what really drives relationships on the private side and on the professional side as well. So, and to that thinking where we come from, it was sometimes not necessary to understand the counterpart. So it was, always about our own experiences, our own perspectives and views we have in life, and trying to pushing those through. But for me, I see the real difference in projects and also in private life when I somehow became an advocate for the counterpart. So trying to translate things, to mediate, to bring different perspectives together. But maybe by accident or whatever. So I did this more by instinct. So this was not what I was trained at school or by my parents. This was maybe by my parents, but this is not what they thought what I should do. I was not told to do, but it helped. So I remember several projects in my life and also when I took responsibility, maybe at the fire department and stuff like that this really helped me, to bring people together and see, okay, what makes relationships working and what not. And due to the question you asked, if there's one moment in my life, so what I see now the last years when I was trained in therapy and also cognitive behavioral therapy and later acceptance commitment therapy, this is where I started to understand what the concept is behind, so when we talk about tensions, when we talk about poles, when we talk about what do we think and how to keep such things. So there were several moments in my life where I seen how things work, not work, and what might be behind that.
super interesting. And in particular, what resonates directly to me is the translation aspect. I think translating something which is normally super complex into something tangible and what you're able to grab on yourself and what you're able to understand, I think that's the most important and most relevant aspect. And yeah, so maybe let's jump a bit more into Spannungsraum, which
Mhm.
I did say in English quite funnily, Spannungsraum. So it's the German Spannungsraum, the lab.
Yeah, okay. So in your Spannungsraum labs, you frame tension as something to experiment with, not to avoid. So what's the first experiment you ask leaders to run when they say, our organization is way too complex. We need clarity, not more ambiguity.
This is so it's really, so the question is it a question I can ask, or is it also, questioning this question, because when we talk about reducing complexity, so, and I think that when people really think that we need more clarity and not more ambiguity, for example, this could be a very common belief behind, especially in management situations, and this is why many managers dislike tensions. So, because they feel something, and feelings and emotions are very bad in management positions, so they don't take place there. It's irrational, and so they want to feel comfortable somehow. So so then it's quite clear there's a belief behind that, and this needs to be questioned. So and so really to understand, so what is your driver, what are your goals, and why do you believe that this is the right way you see those things and needs and behind. And because the belief to reduce ambiguity is so that the life will become easier and tension will just disappear is an illusion. And of course, where's a big difference is in management positions over hierarchies. If you make a decision and others need to care for the consequences of this, or need to hold the consequences of these decisions, you might never feel what you decided. And this is, when you go to the private side and when you have a look at private relationship, this is a whole complete thing, different thing, right? So when you decide something for your family, for your husband, for your wife, or for your friend, and they have to deal with it, then the feedback will follow immediately. But when you make decisions in an organization, maybe you don't care about what that means. And so many decisions become a so-called one-sided decision. They hope that complexity will go away. Fine. And the problem is that the ambiguity is still there, but it's held by someone else. And so to get this thinking a bit into manager hats, this is what my goal is here, and really challenging things. So, and this is more about than a talk on understanding where you want to go to, and really to see, hey, what is the real consequence you want to have in future. So I just an example appears in my head. So when I was responsible for software introductions at Siemens, and usually, I remember several talks to managers and steering boards, steering committees, and then they decided that it shouldn't be the Mercedes-Benz Golf is enough. So this was the standard, whatever. So Rainer, I think you might have had several similar experiences here.
That's why I'm laughing so loud, because I mean, that is the term which has been used so many times. Forget about the Mercedes. We don't need that. Golf is enough.
I remember one meeting when I asked, since when do we build cars? And but what it shows is that there's a management level, usually, or a decision-making level of people who will never use that kind of software they make decisions for. And what they do is then they decide of how the software looks like other people need to work or have to work with every day. And so the question becomes, what is a Mercedes-Benz and what is a Golf? And because it's about costs, it's about quality. And then we always have this kind of tension because KPIs are set to cost level. Yeah, so this is one of the most used drivers. And then usually we have the due date. Yeah, so, and these are the things you can't discuss. So, and in the end, you produce maybe software and introduce software, which is not that one that is needed by people on the working level. And then very funny things starting to happen. People use it or don't use it, or they just enter information nobody can work with. This is because the software doesn't help. It doesn't make their life easier. Then they feel this kind of tension. And just because the management decided not to deal with this tension at the exact moment where it would be necessary.
I would like to stick with that thought and with the tension aspect, with a follow-up question. So if we listen to what you've said, it's all about clarity and clarity over comfort, at least in certain parts. I do and now just breaking a bit off the barrier towards the management, I do understand driving my own company that sometimes it's more about predictability, it's about control, it's about risk mitigation. Well, I mean, you need to have an understanding about all those aspects as well. And I would partially, if I have to decide whether it's clarity or comfort, decide for clarity as well. But how can we convince leaders that tension isn't a threat to that? It's not a threat to stability, but lastly, the foundation of it.
Honestly, this makes me think, and because if you would have asked me a couple of years ago, this answer would be completely different. But now I say I don't try to convince leaders anymore.
So
I don't convince people for change. Sorry?
They need to understand it by themselves.
They need to feel it. And this is because when we talk about comfort, this is a feeling. This is, do I feel comfortable here? Or is there a tension I already see? Maybe is there something coming up and I have no words for it, but I feel if I decide that way, then my boss might say this was wrong and you have to take the consequences, or you don't get the bonus, or whatever. You want to get not promoted anymore. There are so many consequences behind our decisions we make or leaders make in that world. And what many people want is kind of clarity about the consequences. And this is and sometimes when we talk about decision making and making this decisions, we need to understand what the consequences are. So, and these are the questions I can ask. Yeah. So, do you really go for that consequence or not? Yeah. So that might take something. That might cost something. Yeah. That might cost some let's say uncertainty, feeling of uncertainty, of insecurity, because I don't know. So for example, when I take two poles about control and about trust. Yeah, so this is a nice tension. We are all fine that we need to have several things under control, especially you and I we know it directly from leading our own company. So we need to have things under control.
Yes.
But we can't have everything under control. We cannot control who will be our customer tomorrow. We cannot control if we get a new order tomorrow. We can just try. So, and there are several times, maybe it's the same for you as for me, that sometimes it helps to have the trust in yourself that there will be also better months than prior before. And especially also in this kind of change, what we talk about. Yeah. So when we talk about changing things, that means that we have no clue if that works. If we change our own behavior, if we change the things we say, we have no clue do the people really behave like I wish they do? Maybe, but I don't know. So now I can use my brain and say, no, it doesn't work. And this gives me then the reason why not to change. Yeah. So because our brains are quite smart in that way, and they tell us where we want to go, or I become conscious about and say, hey, I have no clue, and maybe people, let's see how they react. And this needs this kind of courage and curiosity to face that.
I love that. And maybe just to stick up on that, what you said, the trust in yourself, and I can 100% agree on you. Sometimes it requires exactly this. And you need to just believe in yourself that there will be a next customer, there will be a next project, and there will be something coming up. But I do feel leaders who might now listen to us and to that podcast and saying, well, but I am under a super high pressure at the moment, and there is so much things I have to do. And if you just look at geopolitical aspects and to the insecurity in the world and wars and staff lackage and all that things, do you probably have another example maybe from your concrete coaching or from the current situations where attention leads to breakthroughs, which could be something practical our listeners could just take with?
So when it comes to pressure, and this is when we have a look at LinkedIn or whatever. So one thing is a political or geopolitical situation. Of course, we have the climate change stuff and so on. But what we also see that is when we have a look internally into companies, what we see is that they always face a tension between stability and change or innovation. Yeah. So, and when I remember times when I was working for Siemens, for example, and I was a assigned resource with an assigned role, for a topic like leading a department of several teams. So it was quite clear what the expectation was for me as a leader, or also maybe before as a project manager or just an employee. So it was quite clear decided. So, and then I came up with the idea of becoming a bit more innovative. But this was not part of my job description. This was not part of our department. There was no task, assigned. And this is also not what I figured out how innovation usually works. It just appears in somebody's head from one day to the other. So you have no clue if someone just pops out and say, this is something we could do completely different. And then you are exactly in this tension as a manager, say, wow, I don't have resources for that. And the next cost cut is already decided from up there, or headcount cut. So, and then people come up here with brilliant ideas and say, hey, we can do it completely different. And then you are in this, what we call sandwich position. Say, how can I be a good leader now and do the job people, others, or my bosses expect? And how can I tell that the framework conditions to become innovative are not given? Where are the structures? Where are the processes built that exactly those people who want to drive something new or want to try themselves out find the right way to go for it? And I remember the complete opposite thing. I remember what we called a Innovationsstammtisch. So
Typical Bavarian thing. So if you're listening now in Australia and wondering what Stammtisch means, that's what we do here in Bavaria. We just sit together in mostly Bavarian restaurants and drink beer and eat sauerkraut. No, just kidding. That was a bias.
The sausages.
Right. And so we can do this in a company as well. So we had this innovation Stammtisch I think bi-weekly. And this was where assigned people met every second Friday for 1.5 hours to become innovative. And also after a couple of years, being a lecturer in innovation, this is not what I would advise. Yeah. So because this is not how innovation happens, because you give something to drink and some food to people. Yeah. This is just the way, put innovation into a way where it fits into a system where efficiency is the key driver. And otherwise, you would need to say as a leader, without the right structures, I cannot do it. And I observed this also very personally when I started the Siemens Pride employer resource group, for example, when the C-level, they just shout out their vision of what is the great culture thing, and you need people to go. And I was asked to go for Siemens at that time to a congress, to an external congress, and be there. And the problem there is I met people from many other companies, and I was so inspired about ideas, what we need to do or what we could do to make this different. And then I came back, and then I was told that I'm not working for the diversity office. I'm not paid for it, and I don't have time for it, because we need to change here. We need to reduce the costs at IT and whatever. And then you are in this, in this match of you hear where we want to go, and you see that you can't move. And then you need somehow to address those things, and also to rethink a bit about what do I want for myself, and what do I support, and maybe is that the right place for what I want to do.
And sorry if it's again me asking a question, but I'm just picking up on that because it's a wonderful type of a storylining which could probably help people listening to us. So the next 5 questions will be from Antia, not from myself. I'll keep my mouth shut. But I mean, you're both. You're an executive coach. You're a licensed psychotherapist, what we've heard at the beginning. So if there is someone out there who's able to help people and leaders in particular to navigate through that maybe internal conflict, you would see what you just described, then it is definitely you. So is there anything you could just maybe share some thoughts, and how could you help them to navigate without burning out or becoming cynical one or the other way?
Yeah, so first I would like just to clarify, because it's, what's a coach, what's a therapist, so what makes me a coach, or maybe just a sparrings partner or whatever, or a consultant. And this is sometimes not that clear. Most cases it's a mix. So, when I work with people, with leaders in the company, so usually I do coaching. So healthy people, and they want to reach some targets, and they want to somehow, they struggle with something, they face some challenges or maybe some problems, hurdles, whatever. And so to find ways. When people come to me for therapy reasons, then there must be maybe something happened before. So usually, from me, like I'm a psychotherapy practitioner, so I never studied that. So what the disorders I work with are usually anxiety disorder, so burnout stuff, little or small depressions and stuff like that, and behavioral stuff or emotional stuff. So this is where I support. And there's something in between, this what we call an event, a crisis maybe. So and this is where my crisis intervention comes. So I can really see where people are, if they are in a good mode, if they are in a more stressful mode, are they facing a actual crisis, or is there something what became already more than just a pattern, what became maybe already an identity or a personality trait, which needs different interventions, because changing behavior by also changing parts of the identity and understanding needs completely different ways to deal with it. So when we talk about a bit, when you see yourself and listening today, maybe to this podcast, and you ask yourself, what can I do? What can I do really to rethink and deal with this tension? The first thing is to accept it. Really to understand that there is a tension, and this is quite normal. Yeah, so there is something, there's a polarity in you face, and maybe you need somebody you can talk to. One thing could be ChatGPT. Yeah, you can tell ChatGPT or another LLM as well, about the situation you face, and help yourself a bit. So I also have a chatbot on spannungsraum.com, for example, to figure out what the tensions are you are facing. So that asks you the right questions, and really first thing is accepting things and not fighting against it. Because, what we are used to is bad feelings we try to suppress. And suppressing feelings and not feeling anything anymore means depression. So, and what many people learn, keep smiling all day long. Yeah. So never be too much, and don't tell anybody that he or she's too much. Yeah. So I can carry everything. So this is, this is maybe also the driver. I want to be somebody who others can trust on, others feel guided, feel supported, and whatever. I'm the helper, I'm the rescuer, and maybe I'm not that one who also asks for help and support. And this is usually a big dynamic when it comes to burnout, because when you don't see your own boundaries anymore, and you can see it only when you feel them and when you recognize them. And so this is also something that you need to learn. And this is also what I do in coaching or maybe in therapy. Then when I help people that they feel themselves better, that they can address their boundaries better, that they can set boundaries for themselves, but also for others. And because what you said, becoming somehow aggressive or cynical is a sign that boundaries are not set properly, are not showed to others. And this is one of the most, from my point of view, this is one thing that usually, or this is what I do with many clients on a nearly daily basis.
Can you give a practical example? So how can the leaders exercise to protect their own boundaries?
It really depends a bit. So, when you talk to leaders and you talk about emotions or feelings, this is where they mostly have a kind of resistance. And but what they do is that they show them. Some leaders show aggression. Yeah, when they are pissed, when they get loud, then you see, oh, there's a boundary. Wow, but he is or she is not able to tell it, but she or he gets very emotional. This is one thing. Yeah, never happened. So, and so especially when people are under pressure, and this is a stereotype, but mostly men show this externally in that way. And just to stereotype a bit, so when we talk about women or people from marginalized group, then it's more about, taking everything in, understanding everything. Yeah, so then we have two sides of the same medal. It's about anger on the one hand side, on the other hand side, it's about fear or anxiety. And so the impulse easily is to fight against something or to run away from something, just to protect boundaries. So when I see myself, when I observe, or maybe my opposite, it's usually a bit easier. So then I can really start to understand, oh, wow, there are some boundaries which are hit. And this is the very first step, that I need to recognize there is something. What is it? Why do I react that way? Is it just because I'm overwhelmed? Is it because my expectations are not met? I heard a story about somebody, Rainer, from a company we both know, and about a C-level person. So it's already a time ago when it was she's not amused, and I said, okay, did you ask what is up? What were your expectations, or is it about your values which are hit? So when we talk about values like loyalty or what like stuff, so this is all stuff of coaching or therapy in behind to figure that out, to get a bit off that trait. But the very first thing is seeing these emotions and knowing that it might be tough for people to get behind that, because fear says, oh, this person is angry, and then we stop talking. And then we say, then we go to somebody else and tell, wow, he or she was whatever. And this is exactly the moment to change. This is exactly the moment to say, hey, I see that you're pissed. I don't know what it is. If it has to do with me or my behavior or the results or whatever, can you please tell me? But otherwise, I wouldn't maybe proceed in the talk.
Of that. So the shout out goes to all the people out there in surroundings like the ones we've just experienced, at least in the past. If you have a situation like that, and if you're wondering why your boss or your manager is being pissed, whether it's male or female, doesn't matter. If you don't know why, ask. Just ask. Don't take it with you. Don't take it away. Don't interpret something into it. Just ask. And you might get a response you probably don't even expect.
And hold this tension, because you don't know when you ask, you don't know what will happen. And this is exactly the tension at that moment, which is necessary to be kept.
Perfect.
Wonderful. That's
So just one last question about the topic of leadership. So you work plan systematic dynamics with individual patterns. Is there one pattern you see in almost every leader, kind of a habit that they need to learn to stay effective?
Yeah, I just thought a bit about it, but it's, it's about harmony. I see so many people out there who love harmony. Your silence and harmony, and we all like each other, and everything runs smoothly and whatever, because pressure and speed is so high. And so because and so and they and what they do is that they don't tell the right things, so they withhold things. They don't say what they think. They don't talk about their intentions. Maybe this is all what happens because they fear the conflict. They fear maybe escalations, when you address boundaries also to others, when you address boundaries to yourself, or, when you say, hey, especially in those times, when more and more stress appears, so we become more and more impulsive. Impulsive means that we follow the impulse of our emotion. It's not that everybody gets aggressive. And this, when you see, for example, that you hear from the strategy and wherever that you should become more innovative, and you see that it's not possible because you're not incentivized for the right way. For example, you don't have the right goals and targets set. You maybe you're not. I think you need to address this. And this is not about blaming somebody up in the hierarchy. It's about changing the system. It's about changing the structures. And so this pattern of everything should be in harmony, so that I might be also seen for the next career step, that I'm not a problem to somebody else, that I'm always the guy everybody can trust on, and I'm the smooth running person. Is something why many people start to inert those feelings and suppress them and stuff like that. And what many feel is that they get, or they lose the relation, that they lose the relation to their people, that they lose the relation to their managers, that they lose the relation to companies. Yeah, so because they are so busy in somehow dealing with this. And so this is a real tough trait, harmony.
And maybe just as an addition to what you said, Alex, I think this is a two-lane issue, and it's not just that all the employees need to expect from their leaders, but the other way around. Even the leaders are sometimes searching for real harmony or for real emotions and real feedback, which they sometimes don't get for various different reasons, without any doubt. And there is definitely hierarchies and wrong understood what leadership means and all that aspects. But I would say, and now back to that very tangible and on an eye-to-eye level, practical examples of what you've given before, I think that's the same here as well. So if you have the impression that your manager, your leader, is searching for harmony, why not be the one to open your doors and maybe have at least a handshake or at least the attempt to reach out. Or the other way around, if you are a manager listening to us right now, and we have plenty of C-levels listening to our podcast as well, if you're the one always thinking, well, why is all of my team not interested in all of that things? Maybe you should just open yourself up and just formulate that in words and just say what you search and what you wish and what you would like to have.
The last month or the last years, many times we discuss about topics like diversity, about mental health. We talk about change. We talk about sustainability and all that stuff. And what I see in many companies, that they have this kind of employee engagement surveys. They ask the people, and maybe on a regular basis. And this is okay. What they also do is that they send them to trainings, usually online trainings, and watching videos and about stuff like that. The problem here is when things are become, they also still a part also is the structure around them. So this is not just on the people, on the individual itself. It's also about the structure. And usually when you learn something, that something should change, you also need to have a chance to question the system. You need a chance to give feedback that their system also need to be adapted a bit. It's not about a revolution. It's not about changing the system. Maybe some people think that, and the higher the pressure, the more people shout out for changing the system. But in the end, this is just a problem of not listening and not setting then the right the right measures to make things change. And so this is what you really can change a bit in as a leader in for your team, for example, that you can say, okay, what can we do? What can we not do? So what is it? And what might it need maybe to address things somewhere else? And this is maybe a very therapeutic question in the end. So when couples come for therapy, there might be a goal that they still are together in future, but it's open. It's for the therapy itself, it's an open target. It's not clear that the therapy will lead them that they stick together. It might be that they figure out that they don't fit anymore. And this is the same thing in a company as well. When you see times of change, things are changing. So sometimes the question also might be, if this is still that way here, is it something I will stay? Because then I can complain and complain and complain about everything. Then I'm becoming a victim, but I'm a victim of my own decision. I decided to stay, and I find hundreds and thousands of arguments why I cannot change and why the system or somebody else has to change. And this is something really, and there's a boundary as well for you as a leader, as to say, hey, this is to say, I cannot help you here anymore. So what do you need? Maybe that you find a place where you better fit, or a place which supports you most. And these are talks, they are, from the very, because it's also tension, because you need to have stability in. You don't want to make people leave, but holding them also doesn't make sense in every case.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I like that. Okay, let's jump to the next topic. So you have led digital transformation at Siemens. You advised on AI bias and diversity, equity, and inclusion analytics, and thought sustainable leadership at OST. So how do you reconcile the tension between technological progress and human integrity?
I hear so many times that technology is here for us humans, but what I see is the complete opposite. And this is not new. And this is since we have industrial revolution, we still face the same issue. There are some engineers which have great ideas, and then they really innovate machines. Yeah, they figure something out and they set it into place, and people need to adapt. And we had this every time again in every wave of the industrial revolution, that people adapt and feel somehow driven by technology. And technology is always faster than we are. So, and what we had so from the past is, and it was more about physical work, right? So the first waves of automation. So this was about physical wave, and now with digitalization and AI, we come that it's also a cognitive revolution. And honestly, I can't how say compete with AI in thinking or having a look at a mass of information or setting things together, so but and so what I see here is more the question is, what is technology good for? What is not good for? So we see also that we can use technologies in different ways. We can use this for good stuff in healthcare, for example, but we can use it also for war. We can use technology also we can use it to heal, and we can use it to kill, the same technology. So, and what it is in the end, it's not the technology itself, it's the question, what do we do with it? So who makes the decision what to do with it, and who takes the consequences? And so when it comes to this tension between technology and yeah, I say human integrity, the question we need to ask ourselves more is, in what is the kind of world we would like to live in? What are the solutions we do, and what are the solutions we see that could be possible, but maybe it doesn't make sense to do it. So it's not just because it's a possibility to do, it might be right to do it. And so when I hear about the discussions also, from big tech bosses in the US, their vision of the world or whatever. So the question is that really the world we want to live in? Is that really the world we think we benefit? Because in the end, when we want that technology becomes something that helps us, then everybody of us is in the situation to really to validate if it's a benefit or not. And so this needs a broader discussion, not just a discussion, but it needs feedback from everywhere, and we need to change the ways we put systems, or we have systems nowadays, really to see, hey, I thought it's always a thesis when I have a solution like a technology to set in place. I think this is how it helps, but I need to check afterwards if it exactly works that way. So it's more a scientific approach, what we need to do, and to recheck and to recheck and to recheck, and really to see, and really to see where we want to go, and do we reach this? Are we on the right track, or where are the boundaries, and where we say, okay, this should be different, and this needs to become more and more feasible in our minds.
And talking about a world where we would live in, and in particular, which suits all of us, and that leads me to diversity again, and to that angle. I mean, you had been the one co-founding Pride at Siemens, and which is, for those of you not knowing about it, one of the largest LGBTQ plus networks which is existing in the world. But if you look at what's happening in particular, since that crazy guy in the US is leading the strongest force there, and Mr. Orange is taking everything which is not in his own thoughts, the best things, as woke, and just wipes it away. So from your perspective, why do so many diversity initiatives fail in particular now? And what is maybe the tension they are not addressing with that?
So I think I remember a couple of years ago when I was talking to a responsible person from a big group here in Munich about the diversity topic, and I asked about the gender topic. So man and female and in between, right? So this is the diverse part. So, but mostly when we listen to all the companies, when they address this equality topic, then they address women topics, right? So this is what we hear everywhere: pushing and helping and empowering women and whatever and whatever and whatever. So, but what they completely forget is when we talk about women in leadership positions, there's a number of leadership positions available. And where today there are men placed, and where tomorrow a woman should be placed that has consequences for the woman because she gets promoted. And there's a consequence for this man. And this is not cared about. And I remember this talk because when you say we have ganzheitlich the
complete, or
yeah, so we see everything. So when we talk about gender, and I say, what are your measures and whatever? How do you care for men? And they say, there's no need for men. So, the system cared for men over the last hundreds of years. And I said, this is wrong. This is not where it is. So we also need to help people to change here. You need to offer measures. You need to offer things so that they also can change, Otherwise, we will land in resistance and avoidance, and we will end in power plays. We will end up in games. They find ways not to change. They find ways, and this is and this is one thing I see since years, that most companies, they are very one-sided here in every and I know. From my point of view, when I look especially at the LGBTIQ topic, so we will never have, as LGBTIQ people, we will never have the power that we will be the half of the people. So, there would never be enough power to say, hey, so we always need allies. We always need people who say, hey, this is how here and whatever. So we cannot go over power plays. Some might go, but this is so the question in the end, when we all fight against each other, and with some power games, we also lose trust in each other. So what is the consequences? What are the consequences of going in that direction? So also here, asking for what is the target situation? What is the goal? What is the vision where we want to go to? And then ask question, where are we now? And what does that mean? What are the consequences? And who has to take the consequences? And what are the measures and maybe things we can offer that these things are happening? And these questions are, in many cases, are not asked. Because, there's, oh, wow, we need this. And then this tunnel goes, and this is the one direction, and everything needs to go through this. And this is, I say sometimes it's like rolling out SAP. Yeah, so it's quite clear. This is how it has to be, and everybody has to follow. And then let's see what happens. And it's the same with diversity in some. Maybe there are companies out there who do this. I don't know, because it's more that I experienced, I have this experience from the past here. But when I talk to people and I discuss with people how it is, then it's usually very one-sided.
And just reminds me to an episode which we've had 2 weeks ago. So on the 2nd of February, it was launched, and that's the episode with Matthias Biel, who's the DEI responsible at Kyndryl. And he's just started a known, very small, tiny company called Pool Match, and he's connecting people. A pool of people is being matched to each other randomly, following AI algorithms, and is trying to break down barriers and biases and stereotypes exactly for that purpose. But let's just maybe jump, as we are already 50 minutes in time, let's jump to maybe our tradition. Antje, do we have one?
Exactly. So, Alex, we ask every guest to add a song to our podcast playlist. So, what track is stuck in your head right now, or reminds you of a special moment in your own transformation?
There are many songs due to the fact that I'm a singer in a choir here in Munich, and music helps me a lot to also to feel myself, to accept my mood and so on. And but that there's really one song over many years from Arcade Fire, and it's called Neighborhood. The first episode, Tunnels, because the song is a bit about moving forward and without having figured out what works and what not. So it's really, so we see that there's something that need to change, and let's figure out what it is. It's about how to find courage in connection, how to connect to each other, and if there's still uncertainty and unclarity. So this is and so this is when I listen to the song. This is really what I feel. How to find my way to deal with those situations and find those people I can connect with to go in or to become a better movement also in the right direction.
Well, and again, a complete new direction in our playlist. So last week we've had Artie, who added Coldplay, and now we have a complete new angle. Thanks for that. And talking about Artie, she gave us another tradition in our 1 week in transformation challenge. So Artie asked us, Antje and myself, what she's doing each day. She's starting the day with an entry into her journal, and that journal is then to set the tone, to just define what will come up. How do I behave? What do I probably do different than what I did last day? And then in the evening, she's taking a look again into their journal to reflect whether it was something which really happened or what could have been different and what she needs to do. So I have to be very honest. I haven't tried it yet because I'm not that type of a journal person. How are you, Antia?
Me neither. But it's on my list. I really need to try it because I think
And we will. Promise, Archie, we will, definitely. But Alex, and now getting to you, maybe you have a actionable tip to foster inclusion or empathy, anything in our own circle, or what it is something which you would just give up to Antea and to myself, but to all of our listeners as well.
So yeah, there's something I like from Debbie Ford. She wrote a book about shadow work, and this is what I use a lot. And usually when you talk to people and there's something you dislike, yeah. So when you see exactly there's a behavior or things, and this is something you really dislike, this might be something what you suppress in yourself. So, and when it comes to empathy and to inclusion and to understand others better, usually it helps to understand yourself better. And because why is that necessary? When we dislike things from others, then we easily judge. And judging means not learning. Judging means that we stick into our mind and we are not open. Because it helps us, to reduce the complexity. It helps to reduce the tension. But asking myself the question, what is it? And why don't I like it? Why don't I do it? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it because of my values? Or maybe there's a part of myself, because Debbie Ford says, we are all, as human beings, we are all everything. We all contain all the attributes which make us human beings. The question is just how we show them and how we use them. And what is our inner set or our mindset, how we see it. And to overcome this judging and to overcome this resistance, it really helps to say, hey, what is it? And why do I suppress it? Or why do I dislike it?
I already have a good thought where I can just try that out at least tomorrow morning while taking public transport in Munich. There is several
Yeah.
moments in which I think, why the hell don't I like that? People speaking on loudspeakers throughout the public transport and stuff like that. But I'll just ask myself. So that's a very good one. So as said, 55 minutes. So I don't want to overstretch our listeners' ears and their focus. But Antje, after this mind-blowing and really, really wild ride of holistic conversations now with Alex, I've got so many ideas what we should do tomorrow. Should we probably turn all the boardrooms into a Spannungsraum, or force all CEOs to embrace ambiguity, or start a therapy practice for organizations suffering from clarity addiction? Write maybe a ballad about Ambiguitätskompetenz or tour with it. Or maybe we should, I don't know, convince the world that tension is not the enemy and it's the fuel for transformation. Wait, no, but we should do something else, shouldn't we?
Yes, of course. We do the same thing as we do every day, Rainer, trying to take over the world, or at least help Alex and our listeners turn tension into experiments, swap comfort for clarity, and remember that self-leadership isn't a skill, it's a survival strategy. So, one day in transformation.
One day. And thank you very much, Alex, where we talk about the future like it's ours to build. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for all the inspiration. That was electrifying. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And you'll find the link to Alex and to Spannungsraum and all the other things in the show notes, as always. Don't forget to click on the abonnement and follow us week after week. And we'll just release then the next episode just 1 week after. If you would like to be part of us and would like to be part of our podcast, just reach out in a direct message or comment underneath social media postings. And we'll be more than happy to invite you. Thank you very much for listening and have a good one.